Okay, good evening. And tonight is our monthly meeting of the Board of Adjustment. We are committed to a transparent process and encouragement of public comment during our meetings. We will be accepting testimony from all parties. If you wish to testify on any particular petition before us this evening, using the Zoom platform, please use the raise hand feature. You can raise your hand at any time and we will recognize you at the appropriate time for the presentation of evidence for each case, of which there's only one tonight. Are we doing okay? You're not hearing anything?
Court reporter Courtney, were you able to hear anything just now?
I can hear everything. Can you hear me?
Okay, I guess the problem is on my end. Apologies for the interruption.
No, you're fine. It's good to make sure we got our things in order here. Okay, let's see. Where are we? Okay, so if you want to make a comment in person, please hand staff a speaker's card. Planner Robin Keefe will be moderating the hybrid meeting and will be asked to provide names of those individuals that wish to speak. I would like to call the meeting of the City of Wildwood's Board of Adjustment to order. The board members present today are Mr. Bob Morris, board member, Mr. Dave Bartolino, alternate member, Mr. Michael Lee, board member, Mr. Anthony Reiner, alternate member, and myself, Arnie Sprunger, acting chair. The Department of Planning staff present is Mr. Joe Vunich, Director of Planning, and Ms. Robin Keefe, Planner. Assistant City Attorney Sarah Rutherford and Court Reporter Courtney Tallman are also present on Zoom. First, I offer into the record the affidavit of publication pertaining to today's meeting, May 15th, 2025, and take official notice of the zoning ordinance of City of Wildwood, including Chapter 400, Article 2, authorizing and establishing the Board of Adjustment's powers and duties. Now, let me explain the hearing procedure. Please be aware the information I'm about to describe is also provided on the Board of Adjustment Public Hearing Procedure handout, which was available online prior and up to tonight's meeting. The hearing is informal in its nature. However, the meeting's proceedings will be recorded by a reporter for future transcription if needed. The petitions are called in order listed on the agenda. As a petition is called, I will ask a Department of Planning staff member to read each request into the record. Thereafter, the Department of Planning will have opening remarks and a brief slide presentation. Then the petitioner or his or her representative will be asked to state their name and address, be sworn in by the court reporter, make a brief presentation to the board explaining the nature of the requested variance, and present such evidence and witness testimony that may evidence the practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship that warrant the variance. The board will only consider the unique character of the property to determine whether they warrant the granting of a variance. The petitioner's presentation shall be limited to 15 minutes total, inclusive of any questions posed by the board, unless such time is extended by the chair, myself. Board members may ask questions to clarify the facts of the petitioner's presentation. When the board is satisfied with the material presented by the petitioner, the chair will ask if there is anyone present or online who would like to speak in favor or opposition to the requested variance. Each speaker will be asked to provide their name and address, be sworn in, and then provide their evidence or oral testimony. Witness testimony shall be limited to 5 minutes, inclusive of any questions posed by the board, unless such time is extended by the chair. Procedurally, the petitioner may request a continuance at any time during the hearing prior to a call for the vote in order to bring in additional evidence or testimony. The board may also continue the proceedings. After the submission of testimony and evidence from all interested parties, the board will ask a staff person to provide the Department of Planning's report on this matter if requested by any member of the board, the petitioner, or any individual that is participating in person or online. Once all witnesses have been heard, I will call for a motion to grant or deny with or without conditions. Then the board will vote. At that time, the presentation of evidence relating to the petition is concluded and no further evidence will be permitted. The board may make a decision today. 4 members of the board must vote in favor of the variance for it to be approved. If a variance is approved, the petitioner has 6 months to obtain the necessary permits or establish the use, or it will expire. If the board's decision is unfavorable, the petitioner has the right of appeal to the St. Louis County Circuit Court. This appeal must be done within 30 days of the decision. Okay, Ms. Keefe, are there any questions at this time? Nothing online?
Mr. Chair, I do see one individual online. If that individual would like to ask any questions at this time, please use the raise hand feature. I see no raised hands.
No raised hands. Okay. So since there are no questions at this time, the meeting will proceed. So if we could read the first request into the record, which will be provided by a brief slide presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
City.
Mr. Chair, the first Board of Adjustment case tonight is BA 10-25, David Flagg. 244 Timber Meadow Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63011, care of Emily Wayhart. St. Louis Hardscape Solutions, 2763 West Osage Street, Pacific, Missouri, 63069. Requests an exception to the minimum yard requirements general for the purpose of constructing a new concrete modular block retaining wall, which will be 8 feet maximum in height and 167 feet in length, to be located along the back portions of both sides of the lot and its rear property line abutting Strecker Road, upon the property being located at 244 Timber Meadow Drive, locator number 22U230115, Timber Ridge Estates, Plat 1, Lot 2, which would thereby authorize a front yard setback distance of 0 feet in lieu of the required 20 feet. This lot has 2 frontages on Timber Meadow Drive and Strecker Road, thereby having 2 front yards, though the retaining wall will be at the rear of the dwelling along Strecker Road, and a side yard setback distances of 0 feet in lieu of the required 8 feet. This request is contrary to the requirements of Chapter 415.140 R3 10,000 square foot resident district regulations and Planned Environment Unit PEU amended ordinance 14735 approved by St. Louis County Council in 1989. This particular property is located in Ward 4. And before Ms. Keefe begins her presentation of slides, the department would like to enter into the record the following items. Chapter 400, Article 2 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the Board of Adjustment. Chapter 415 of the same City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the zoning ordinance. The file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning regarding this particular request, and all contents contained therein, including the department's report with recommendation. And then finally, any evidence that is provided as part of tonight's hearing, including but not limited to testimony, maps, plans, plats, photographs, and any other. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, our only and first case this evening involves the construction of a new modular block retaining wall, which will have a maximum height of 8 feet and which will be 167 feet in length and located in the backside portions of the lot and along the rear property line. The subject property is located within the Timber Ridge Estates subdivision. It is zoned R3 with a planned environment unit approved by St. Louis County also upon it. This dictates the yard setback areas and distances, which is 20 feet distance for front yards or yards that are fronting public roadways in this case, and 8 feet for the side yards. The lot is 0.27 acres in size, and it's occupied by a single-family home that was built in 1985. If you follow that yellow arrow on your screen, you will see the location of the subject lot, which is eastern Wildwood and along Strucker Road, which is north of Highway 100. As noted, the subject lot does have two frontages, with the front of the home facing Timber Ridge Drive and with the back of it, Strucker Road. And the retaining wall would be built to the rear here. Strucker Road is a 40-foot city-maintained arterial road. It goes north and south from Highway 100 north. And Timber Meadows Drive is a neighborhood road. It's 50 feet wide. The lot does have a 60-foot frontage along Timber Meadow Drive and a 96-foot frontage along Strucker Road. It is 126 feet of depth. The lot is somewhat sloped. It sits upon a hill. It slopes 4 feet to the front of the property, it descends, and then it descends 12 feet to the rear of it, northeast. The subject lot is covered in grassy turf. Again, the petitioner is proposing to construct 167 linear feet of Rockwood Classic 8-inch modular concrete block retaining wall. And that is depicted in this orange line here. So the back portions, backside portions of the lot and along the rear property line. Along with this wall, the petitioner is proposing to install 159 linear feet of black aluminum fencing as well, along with some drainage infrastructure within the yard to help with the drainage issues. The wall's height is going to vary from 1 foot on the sides to up to 8 feet in the rear yard area. And this is going to require a zero foot setback distance all around. I should note that according to the petitioner's representative, St. Louis Hardscape Solutions, the slope of the rear portion of the property is causing ongoing erosion issues, which needs to be stabilized by the wall, hence this variance request. I would also like to note that the wall is proposed to be placed within utility easements all along it. So the petitioner has been notified of such, and they are working on getting the appropriate releases from the rights owning entities. This is the front of the home. This is looking northeast. This gives you a sense of Timber Meadow Drive and the front area of the home in the subdivision. This is looking northeast at the southern side yard of the home. And then this is the other side yard of the home. This is looking west or southwest across Strucker Road at the rear portion of the petitioner's property or the subject lot. This is another perspective of that area looking northwest. This is the petitioner's property, the petitioner's fence, sidewalk. This is looking southwest towards the petitioner's residence, which is located on the right here. This is looking northwest along the fence line. This is looking northwest at the neighboring residence. This is looking southwest at the other neighboring residence. This is looking west. This is looking across Strecker Road from the subject lot, looking northeast. And this is looking east across Strucker Road as well from the subject lot. And this is looking north. And I think it's worth mentioning that this residence here across Strucker is the Ben Balmer House, which is a historic landmark in Wildwood. It was built circa 1891. And this is looking southeast on Strucker Road, just to give you a sense of the surrounding area. That concludes my presentation at this time. If you have any questions of the department, Director Vunich and I are happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keefe. Are there any questions from the board about the presentation or the request?
I have one question. The property line that you had on your presentation drawing, because I think the exhibit photos are a little misleading. The fence on the property is up the hill, but if you go to that historic photo, I think the property line goes down to that section where the fence is. So,
That is correct.
so the wall would be all the way down here.
That is correct. The fence is set back on the property.
Right.
So in that particular photo, the property owner, whoever has the dog, would have they had to get a variance approved for putting their fence in where they did?
Well, they would, it is in the front yard. Director Vance, will you put that?
Mr. Chair, no, our code, along with St. Louis counties years ago, allows fences up to 6 feet in height to be placed in the setback areas. That includes front, side, and rear. The only prohibition is that if you're on a corner lot, you can't have the fence if it's over 36 inches in height in the sight distance triangles.
But if you're putting a wall in, that's different. Yeah, okay.
For many years, fences weren't necessarily considered structures. Most recently, the city council did pass new legislation where we do now address fences in the front yard areas as well as on the remainder of the lot. But at the time the fences were built, really there was just that one restriction, no greater than 6 feet in height.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So the wall will go all the way down to the sidewalk.
I would note that on one of the exhibits provided by the petitioner, they note that the retaining wall is within 1 foot of the property line on all 3 sides. And I think that's critical because when you replace a sidewalk, a public improvement, like is shown on the photograph that Ms. Keefe's provided, there's an overdig to get the sidewalk out.
Right.
So the wall will have to basically be at a 1 foot or preferably a 2 foot distance from the edge of right of way. I failed to catch that when Ms. Keefe and I talked, but they show 1 foot. That's sufficient, but as I say, when you're replacing sidewalks, the overdig is necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I would like to call the petitioner forward and ask that he or she, I guess he in this case, to state your name, address in relation to the property. And then remember, you'll need to be sworn in by the court reporter.
I'm Zach Wayhart. I'm the contractor hired for the retaining wall project, representative of St. Louis Hardscape Solutions.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so you are to explain the nature of the request and the hardship or practical difficulty necessitating the variance.
Yeah.
You have 15 minutes to present unless you need more time.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so, I mean, spoke with Mr. Bunich on the phone at length, just about, you guys have been out there repairing the erosion. That hillside has been creeping onto the sidewalk. You actually see it in the one picture that you showed of the straight shot down the sidewalk where it's creeping over the sidewalk. So that the left side is a little bit more severe slope and more erosion and stuff going on that side. So basically what we're doing is we're building a retaining wall to alleviate that pressure. 'Cause they had street creep. I think they replaced that too a while back, but everything's shifting. So trying to put something in there to where they're not losing their yard, you can kind of see in a couple of the pictures. I mean, it's just, there's some great grass and then it's just really steep in some areas. So, and they mentioned the 12-foot slope basically from the threshold of the back door down to the sidewalk. And the majority of that 12-foot slope is in the last 15 foot of the yard. So, you guys also talked about, they gave us a list of the different utilities that were in there. So we've already reached out to a handful of those different people. We got approval from Ameren, and then we still have some phone calls out to make through Spire and MSD. And basically the process is they come out and just make sure that nothing's going to be in the way. And if there is, then we're gonna have to hydro excavate it. So it's kind of a, little bit of a process, but I think that what we're going to put in there is going to alleviate that, you guys having to do anything in the future of fixing any more erosion stuff, and as well as that, that hillside intact. So.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the board at this time? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any speakers either online or in the audience that would like to weigh in on this particular request?
Mr. Chair, we do have City Council Member Dodwell here to speak.
Okay, Ms. Dodwell, if you'd like to step forward. I think you know the drill, name,
Sort of.
address, yeah.
Katie Dodwell, 1655 Timber Hollow Drive. And do I need to be sworn in or I just stay?
You will. And your relationship to the property?
I live in the subdivision. I'm the council member for the area.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Basically, I've just had about 20 different residents within Timber Ridge Estates call with concerns, not that they want to negate the ability to put up a retaining wall, but with a better understanding of what this is going to look like. Several residents have said, it sounds to me like it's going to be a castle surrounded by a large wall. So I have a couple of questions for you guys. Number one, we have a 4-foot height limit on fences in the subdivision itself. So if we grant a variance to this petitioner, that's going to go against what the indentures for Timber Ridge Estates has. So we need to make sure that any fencing that goes around there is going to be 4 feet or less. As far as the retaining wall goes, has anybody in the Timber Ridge Estates trustees group reviewed this? Has the petitioner gone before the trustees as is required through the subdivision?
So, yeah, before you can really answer that question,
Yeah.
we'll jot down the question, and then after Ms. Dodwell is finished, we'll give you an opportunity to respond to that.
That'd be fine. I mean, I'm not trying to cause problems, just want to make sure we have the answers right. And I was glad to hear that the contractor had indicated that they were dealing with the utility companies for that electrical box there, because I was like, how are they going to bury that? That's not going to work. And then lastly, I went out and took a look at the design plans that we have to date. And they're very, I would say somewhat vague design plans as far as the height off of Strecker and the sidewalk there. How tall does that retaining wall get? And then what goes on top of that retaining wall? I haven't seen any details, and the information that I've seen through planning and parks or through planning and zoning. So that's why I'm here tonight, is to better understand what they're trying to do so that I can better represent the neighbor who's trying to get this done, as well as those residents that are concerned about it. So that's all I have to say. I just wanted to make sure that we get a little bit more information than we've seen thus far. Thank you.
So Ms. Dodwell, if I could summarize, you had a question about whether the plans were reviewed by the trustees of the subdivision.
Yes,
That
sir.
was one question that you have. Another one is you mentioned that you feel like the design plan is a bit vague. So you would like a little more clarity, or the neighbors would like a little more clarity on what exactly that wall is going to look like.
Yeah, we can see from what's been posted, here's where the lines are going to go for the wall.
Sure.
But I've got people asking me, what is that wall going to look like from the back? Is the lawn going to come up even with the backside of that wall and then the fence goes around it? Or is the wall coming up and the grass stays the same as it is on that slope? Just how does that work?
Okay.
Okay.
And then I think your last question, and you just touched on it again, was, how's the fencing incorporated into the wall? Is it on the wall? Is it inset from the wall? So some of those things
Yeah.
are what you're wanting to
Those kind of
have some
questions.
clarification on.
And then by the time that the retaining wall gets built, and then a 4 to 8 foot fence goes on top of that, as a resident is walking by, are they looking at 20 feet that they're going to be walking past with this? Or is it something in between that where they are now? So,
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Okay, I think it would be appropriate to maybe ask either the department or the petitioner to address the questions that were raised.
Mr. Chair, from the department's perspective, if we could start with the petitioner's representative, the actual contractor for the retaining wall construction, and then we can kind of go from there.
Very good. Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Okay, if either the petitioner or the representative want to come and address these questions. Okay, so just remember to say who you are and your address, and get sworn in by the court reporter. Okay.
David Fleeg Jr. I reside at 244 Timber Meadow Drive, Baldwin, Missouri 63011. I think Wildwood in some cases. Been there for about 13 years.
Okay. We'll get you sworn in, and then you can go from there.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so you may remember the questions. If not, I'll just kind of walk us through. The first one was, did the plans that you've developed, were they reviewed by the subdivision trustees?
Yes, I believe the HOA has to approve it. I don't think we gave them the full detailed packet, but that's probably what the reference is, to not having enough details, but we can provide the entire full packet if needed.
Okay, because I think in past cases, we would see a copy or a letter from the trustees stating their review and support of the project. Is that what you have?
I'll pass that. But yeah, I think his last name is Fry. He had been provided the document, and basically it was called a chicken and egg. They wanted us to go to the variance and get the variance. But I think the variance board wanted us to get.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes we get this chicken and egg thing going on. A lot of times we like to see that the trustees are in favor of the project before we would rule, but we don't have to do it that way. But it is important if those really are indentures or rules or whatever that the subdivision has in place, you'll need to have that.
Yeah, I heard the one. 4 foot. I'm not planning to exceed that. It's 4 foot fence, but obviously I'm small. So,
And it'll be like right inside the block
about a
wall.
foot in, just as you would put fence on top of it.
Right,
Can
that would
you-
be,
Get closer to the microphone. You keep cutting
Yeah.
out. I'm not sure if you're too far away or
Is that better?
that's better.
Yep, so the wall will be built at the property line like you're seeing, and then as the fence is, erected on top of it, it won't be any higher than where the fence is today. It's just basically moving the fence to the wall line. So I think you might think I'm building a wall and putting a fence on top of that wall, and it's gonna be this, large eyesore. But really, right now, when you're looking up the hill and seeing my fence, it's just bringing that fence back another 12 feet at the height it's at. So both the neighbors' yards that I'm building a wall into, my fence is not going to be above their fence. Maybe the part that goes back towards the sidewalk, but where the wall meets, my fence will be no larger than theirs, so only 4 foot tall.
okay, so you're gonna build the wall, or you'd like to build the wall. You're gonna backfill that with soil or whatever, right? So it's basically level
Mhm.
to the top of the wall. And then your fence is gonna go just on the inside of the wall. It's not gonna be mounted to the wall itself, obviously. Yeah, it'll be mounted just inside.
Mhm.
And your plans are to keep it 4 feet or less.
4 foot. I've already acquired the fence due to prices.
Okay, I think that, yeah, okay, great. I think that may even address the question about the design plan. I don't know how we confirm that, but I think we have a better understanding now what you're planning to do. You're going to build the wall, backfill it with soil, put the fence just inside of the wall, no more than 4 feet high.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I think that answers the question.
There was one more, the electrical box. I'm pretty keen on where everything's been, just living there for over a decade and having work done and watching work. That one box that's in the backyard is Charter's. It's not electrical, it's Charter copper communication cable.
Okay,
So I know that Spire, water, electric is all in the front, as well as AT&T communication. So the one that would concern me is Charter.
okay, thank you for that clarification. Other questions?
Yeah, I was hearing something about 8 foot earlier. What's that referring to that?
The 8 foot tall.
Yeah,
So if the best photo is the one that you took a picture of, where when you're standing on the sidewalk, you actually cannot see my house for the most part because the slope goes up that 12-foot drop they're talking about. It goes up about 12 foot to the front of the house and less than 15 feet. So right there at that center point of my yard would be 8 foot, but then it tapers off to not, be 8 foot all the way across. It follows the slope of my backyard, kind of like a drape.
So you're talking about the wall part,
The wall.
yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
In certain places.
in one place. So
In
it'll
one
be
place.
8 foot and then it falls off on both sides.
Okay.
Yeah, so that you can see the tree stump in the middle in this photo. That is where the 8 foot section would be. And then this, where she's standing in the corner here taking this photo, that would, I think, 5 foot, 5.5 foot wall. And then on the other end, very corner, 3.5, 4 foot wall in the very deep corner of the yard.
And how close to the sidewalk is this wall going to be?
We were planning a foot. I can understand. I've worked in concrete, so if more than a foot's needed or whatever's necessary. But I mean, ideally on the sidewalk, but I understand there needs to be some space for work. Right here in this photo, you can actually see where Wildwood has come out to repair erosion and water. I think some neighbors had slipping problems walking right there. They put some aggregate in there and they're out there a couple times digging out.
1 foot is pretty close,
Yep.
pretty close. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Have you discussed this with your neighbors on each side?
I
Do
have.
they have approval?
I have approval from the neighbor on the east or west, the one with the electrical box. This would be on the right side. The left side I've discussed with them. They haven't, main concerns were water. They don't want any more water pushed onto their property. I made it clear that my fence would not exceed their low point of their fence when it's built. And they didn't express any major concerns. The person on the right side, I've had many walk-arounds with them, and he's happy and content.
Thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Dodwell, did we answer your questions? Okay, she is shaking her head yes, so that's a good thing. Okay, at this time, would anyone like to hear an oral presentation of the department's report? Nope, okay. At this time, would the
Mr. Chair,
department like to make any final comments?
before Ms. Keefe gives the department's recommendation, working from the diagram that was provided as part of the application, it indicates an 8-foot wall will be constructed from what is the southern point of the rear yard area as it abuts Strecker Road. So that corner, southern corner at Strecker Road and the rear property line is 8 feet. It continues 8 feet to the center of the lot, then begins to decline in height to 6 feet to the northernmost corner. And then on both sides of the lot, it goes from either 8 feet to 1 foot or 6 feet to 1 foot. And so just making sure that what we've been provided is what is being discussed. Secondly, we did, as part of the recommendation, require the utility companies provide either encroachment agreements or releases if they have no facilities. And then from the department's perspective, it's a little unclear on the fence because the engineering report on the wall shows it, I believe, as a component of the component of the wall. And it's referenced as a detail. So I just want to make sure that we were clear on that as well. It's page 3 of the first engineering report, but it defines it as others at a 42-inch height. So again, just a little bit more information would be beneficial.
Okay, so maybe we do need a little clarification here about where exactly is this fence going to be? Yes, sir. Please approach.
And while the gentleman approaches, I think there may be a building code issue as well. Given the height of the wall, there may be a requirement that the fence be a component of the wall. So I'll let Hardscape Solutions define that. They're better. They do this more often than I. Thank you.
Two different details. So they have it where you can cord drill. So it's just 2 different details in there. So it shows the one where it has the 50 something pages long. That's why we didn't bore you with all the math. I don't even know what the math means really, but I just know how to build it. But see how you see right here, the bottom one, here's behind it. But then there's also detail where it shows it. There's a lot of detail. You can do it either way, it's basically.
And so, okay, so what I'm hearing you say is there are options. You can either put it
Yeah,
on the wall, literally on the wall,
correct.
or you can keep it off the wall, just
Yeah.
Yeah,
Our engineer, the way that he draws it, so I mean, there's three ways really. You could surface mount it to the top, which is just not safe because if you push on it, you can wrench it and break it off.
right.
Or you can core drill into the top through the top of the block into the segmental wall system and then fill that with concrete. And that basically acts as a pier and it's not going to move. I don't like that way because I still feel like that's not super safe. So the way that we have it, and I showed Joe in the detail, it's actually about 1.5 feet to the center of the post off the back of the wall. So
Okay,
there's two different options in the drawing, but there's 3 different ways you can do it. But our engineer only approves one of those 2 ways. And we always do it in the ladder where we put sonotubes back there and then install the fence post behind it. So also the retaining wall too, that's from the top of the wall down to the bottom. So we're going to have that wall is going to be pretty much level all the way across, but we're going to have embedment all the way down. So that way that locks that retaining wall in place. So it's not just 8 foot sitting on top of it. I mean, that's including the embedded section as well. There's per engineer specifications, it has to be embedded to a certain depth just to hold structural stability on that slope.
okay, so then from a clarification perspective, even though there are options on where you put the fence,
Mhm.
how you mount it, what you're testifying now is that you're going to put it off of the wall, behind the wall,
Correct.
and mount that in concrete piers. I'm assuming that's what
Correct.
you're doing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different detail in there too, like with just different geogrid and stuff too. I mean, the way
Right.
that Joe Strain draws this stuff up, I mean, because sometimes you run into an issue like where you're in the field and you start digging and there's different soils and stuff like that. And what happens in the event of plastic soil, or if we hit bedrock and how we chisel that off and make that smooth enough to where it can accept the wall on top of it or build a keyway or something like that. So there's a ton of different detail in there. So basically, if something happens, we're in the field and something happens like, hey, we can't put the fence back here because the house is too close or whatever, we can do this option instead. So it kind of gives us some wiggle room if we have to make a field change and we're still going to be covered for that in that packet. So.
Okay, and as you dig down, I mean, this is engineering stuff, I suppose, but when you put the piers in for the fence,
Mhm.
I don't know if you're using GeoGrid or what you're using,
Yeah.
but okay, so you're gonna have to penetrate through that.
Yeah, so what we do is, I mean, we actually, as we're building up, once we get to the bottom, the subgrade of that pier, we set our sonotubes and then basically straighten those, make them all perfect. And sometimes we'll actually use PVC just so that it doesn't, if we get rain on it, it won't collapse on itself. But then we set that in our backfill and our reinforced section, which is all, has to be at least 96% compact in order to, hold that wall system in place. So, and then that pier is just compacted all the way up until once we get our finish grade, then we install our fence when we're done and then finish grade and work our way out of there.
Okay. I think that
Another
answers
thing
that question.
I was gonna say too, is if we need to,
Sorry.
we can make a 3D rendering to show the neighborhood too, if we need to. I mean, we already have a file in our software, but since this isn't a project where typically when we're doing big outdoor kitchens and fireplaces and all that kind of stuff, showing lighting, all that stuff, we'll do a big 3D rendering of the project. But this one, it's just a retaining wall, so an aerial drawing, and then this giant packet of numbers and squiggly lines and stuff like that suffices at the county level. So we can do a 3D rendering if they want to see like actually what it would look like from the street. I mean, not opposed to doing that. So, and then also with the HOA stuff. So like when we apply through St. Louis County, and I know it's at the Wildwood level, it's kind of weird because like when we were here the last time with Windcrest, they didn't want to give us approval until we got approval here. And it's like, well, what do we do? So
Right.
St. Louis County, like when we're going for permitting and stuff like that, they'll ask us like, hey, did you let the HOA know that you guys are going to be doing this project? And the answer is yes, we did do that. So we did our due diligence on that point. But some people are just, they don't want to give, the nod until, you guys do. So it's just, again, chicken and the egg type thing. So.
Right. Does the HOA have to grant approval before you can do this?
I mean, once we have approval from you guys, I mean, we just have to, in the eyes of St. Louis County, all we have to do is let them know. So now there's different ones like when we work in Eureka and the Legends and stuff, that's all through a property management company. So we have to go through there and get that signed off. But as much of a pain in the butt as it sounds like, it's actually easier because they're they don't live in the neighborhood. They don't really, they just kind of sign off, they let somebody know that the project's going on. Hey, it's not pink shutters. They're not painting the soffit and fascia yellow, like you're good, so, but in this case, I mean, I could understand why, they might want to see it. So I mean, we can definitely do a drawing or make that a condition. Let's do a finished rendering of it. So.
Yeah, I just, maybe the department knows, I'm not familiar with HOAs and how they work, fortunately, but is there a requirement? Does anyone know if the HOA has to approve this? Or is it truly just notifying them?
In the zoning ordinance, there's a provision that requires the department to have verification of notification before we release a authorization for building permits. According to the city attorney, we are not allowed to enforce private restrictions, which are the indentures. So we can't, as the department, say you need homeowner associations approval through their trustees, but we do require verification that they've been notified. We also stamp all the plans that advises the contractor or the property owner or both that approval from the city does not negate compliance to the indentures of the subdivision.
So the city takes it to the point of ensuring that the HOA is notified of the project. What happens after that is a different matter altogether.
As I mentioned, according to the city attorney, push comes to shove. If they comply with the requirements of the zoning district and the zoning ordinance, we're obliged to release it. But we've given the homeowners association, its representatives, the trustees, the opportunity to basically know what's happening, to comment. And certainly we take into account the comments. It may not be that we're applying their restrictions, but we certainly can have that conversation with the property owner or the contractor. They're asking for this. Why can't that happen?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vunich.
I have one more question for the gentleman. So am I wrong to assume that you'll be adding a pretty substantial amount of fill between the wall and where it meets grade by the rear of the house?
There will be a little bit, but all that cut that you can kind of see right there. So we're gonna have to cut all that out for our reinforced section. So really all that fill is gonna come out, and all we're gonna be adding is our reinforced section with the angular aggregate that we have to use there to stabilize the reinforced section. So I mean, you're gonna have about 6 to 8 foot of grid, depending on the elevation of the wall. So I would say you're gonna be adding probably somewhere around 140, 160 ton of 3/4 inch clean, which kind of equates to about 100 cubic yards.
Okay.
And then all the cut that's going to come out of there is going to be placed back on top of it for new grass, turf growth, or restoration.
Thank you.
So do those plans, what they backfill with, how much they backfill with, does that have to be reviewed and approved by the department?
Well, certainly, because unless they go between the abutting houses on either side to the north or south, they'll be working off the right of way, I assume, to bring in that much fill. But maybe they are going to work between the homes. I don't know.
Our plan was to actually use the right of way and then get a permit to use the right of way. And then if we have to replace any of that sidewalk, I mean, obviously it's in our contract that we're, obviously we'll replace it at the homeowner's expense. But I mean, that's really the only way to get back there to fix that. So, I mean, it's just kind of looked at this hillside for many years when I used to mow the grass across the street. So I know it very well.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
I have one question for Joe or Robin. The variances for 0 feet instead of the 20 feet. And this is just for the wall. But if we grant a 0-foot setback, could they come back and do another improvement up to that 0-foot setback above the lawn surface?
No, sir, Mr. Lee. Ms. Keefe is very careful to advertise what's being proposed, in this case, a retaining wall. Anything else that would want to be placed in that setback area would have to come back to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think that answered those questions. Now, I know Ms. Dodd had raised her hand. If you'd like to approach and
I just wanted to let you all know that I haven't received any inquiries from the trustees of the subdivision on this particular issue, so I'm not sure that there's any problem with it from their perspective, but
okay, thank you for that. At this time, if the board would like to make any final comments and recommendations, we would love to hear it.
Morning. A question for the department. On the recommendation to approve it, it's mentioned in there about you have the option of the type of brick and the color. Is that entered in anything?
Yes, that's correct. We're looking to, given the sizable impact that this wall will have on the surrounding area, the department is recommending that we have a condition in there that the department must approve the type and color of the block to be used for the wall's construction to ensure that it matches with some of the surrounding features.
Thank you.
As Director Vunich noted, in addition to that, we were recommending a condition that releases be submitted for all rights holders of the affected easements. But generally, we are supporting the wall, at least in spirit. There is a practical difficulty here in that there is an erosion issue on this hillside. It is affecting both the owner's property and the public right of way, and it could potentially have some future impacts as well. To build a wall in a location further back would render a portion of the subject property unusable in terms of the yard for the petitioner. Potentially, if done right and done in an aesthetically pleasing manner, the wall could potentially improve the appearance of this area. Right now, you're looking at tree stumps and eroded land and, some of those aspects. So potentially this could clean up the appearance if done correctly or done right.
Who maintains the sidewalk?
The city,
The city does.
yes.
Having
It's a
1
public
foot
right
to
of way.
work with from the edge of the sidewalk to the wall, can the city maintain the sidewalk properly with that much room?
I would defer to Director Vunich.
Mr. Springer, we do it elsewhere. It's always not the best case scenario, but what Ms. Keefe and I have tried to do is balance the needs of the property owner against the needs of the right of way. And before you request a motion, I would like to have the floor for just a minute.
Okay,
I didn't want to stop any questions or comments, so on the report itself. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I know this is going to frustrate the property owner as well as the contractor, but the department would respectfully request a postponement. And the reason it's requesting the postponement is I think it's in the best interest of the city as well as the property owner to have more information from the utility companies regarding the releases. If it's just Charter, hopefully we can help him with that since we have a relationship with Charter. I also think it's imperative we get verification from the homeowners association relative to the review. And as mentioned by the property owner, if the neighbors are willing, we would appreciate seeing letters of support or no contest, so to speak. And then finally, I think we need to see a better drawing relative to a rendering so that the neighborhood can see what is being proposed, and also a better depiction of where the fence will be relative to the construction of the wall. And then finally, I believe there needs to be some separation between the edge of right-of-way and the proposed wall. And I would leave that up to the contractor who does this for a living and is very good at it to basically make that determination, what the minimum amount is relative to where it achieves the goal of the wall, but also obviously gives us working room for the sidewalk and the remainder of the right-of-way.
Right. Okay.
And I can provide all of that to the contractor and the property owner tomorrow in an email,
Okay.
if the board is supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. I know there have been a lot of questions and I think we have to decide whether it's in the best interest to flesh some of this out a little bit more. And I understand and agree it may be a little frustrating for the homeowner and contractor, but yet, you know, one more month is maybe not going to, you know, be that big of an issue in the grand scheme of things. But I'll leave that, I mean, to the board. We can decide whether we want to go ahead and make a motion, or we can, I mean, to either approve or deny, or we can make a motion to postpone. Guess it's kind of what we feel is in the best interest. Any comments, any thoughts on that?
Arnie, I'll make a motion that we postpone per the request from Director of Parks and Planning till the next meeting.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion to postpone till the next meeting. Do I have a second on that?
Oh.
Bob, you'll,
I'll second it.
okay, so we have a second. Why don't we go ahead and vote? Mr. Morris, how do you vote?
Approved.
Mr. Bartolino?
Approve.
Mr. Lee?
Approve.
Mr. Reiner?
Approve.
And I also approve postponing the decision. Okay, thank you very much for bearing with us, and I trust we'll come out still with a good outcome. Okay, that takes care of our first and only case for the night. We do have one other issue that we have to deal with, and that is the approval of the minutes from the April 17th board meeting. Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to approve those minutes? Okay, thank you, Mr. Morris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Reiner. Mr. Reiner, how do you vote? Mr. Morris?
Approved.
Mr. Bartolino?
Approve.
Mr. Lee? And I also approve. The minutes are approved. And finally, I'd like to get a motion to postpone, I mean, not postpone, but to conclude our meeting tonight. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Bartolino, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morris? Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
I also vote yes. So that concludes our meeting tonight.